I am back with another installment from my Demonic and Depraved series. So this is about Ian Watkins, and he's representing the darkest side of Leo. So Ian Watkins was a pervert, a child predator, and he's just straight up demonic. So this video has been sponsored by Sid Finn. So thank you, Sid Finn, for sponsoring this video. And I doubt it will be monetized because of the content. So thank you so much for sponsoring it. And Sid wants to know, she said, I came across someone just this week, never heard of him before until now, named Ian Watkins. He's a demon, super dark-sided Leo. He was the front man for a band called Lost Prophets in the 2000s. This dude is one of the worst people I have heard of. I think there's some serial killers that would think he's disgusting. I was wondering if you could touch on how he was able to get older women to just hand over their kids to him. It's like he had a hold over them and was able to control them. So I'll definitely provide the reason why he was able to get these women to just hand over their children to him. So this Demonic and Depraved installment is going to contain clips of this video that's detailing this story. And this story is gruesome, it's demonic, it's one of the darkest case studies I've ever done. So some of it was a bit hard to get through, but I soldiered on and here we are. So let's get into it. So here's the Lost Prophets, and the guy front and center, that's Ian Watkins. He was the front man of the band. And before I get into the video, I just want to talk about his rising sign, because I don't have the birth time for him, but I suspect him of being a Scorpio rising, namely due to his demonic persona, but also if you look right here with him just having this hair over one eye like that, that's very indicative of Scorpio rising. And then this picture right here makes me think, yeah, he got Uranus in Scorpio in the first house because he's half naked, him being tatted up like that. So I propose his ascendant to be Scorpio, but I'm not going to get into the proposed house placement and all that, because you can glean enough information just through the house place, the aspects alone. All right, so I'll be playing several minutes of this video, and then I'll intersperse it with my commentary about his chart.
He was the boy from the valleys who lived the dream, finding fame and fortune in a rock band. But offstage, he committed the most horrendous crimes involving children.
He blurts out, I've got a 2-year-old on Tuesday. What do you mean you've got a 2-year-old on Tuesday? I've got a 2-year-old to rape on Tuesday.
Now there are calls for an inquiry.
Because of the numbers of children involved, the numbers of forces involved, some kind of large inquiry really needs to happen.
For the first time, we can reveal the details behind a second case linked to the same police officer who's under investigation.
He could have been stopped a lot sooner, a hell of a lot sooner.
Tonight, we examine new evidence and investigate if there were missed opportunities to stop a paedophile. Arriving at court, this is the woman who would help put Ian Watkins behind bars.
It doesn't matter how many years he gets, it doesn't matter about his life being taken away because it doesn't give any children. His lives have been ruined, destroyed. It doesn't give them their lives back.
Watkins is driven away to begin a 29-year jail sentence. He admitted carrying out horrific offences with the help of what he called superfans, women who allowed their children to be abused by him. Watkins' offending went unchecked for years, but he was known to the police as long ago as 2008. And we can reveal that social services were also made aware of concerns about him. But he remained a free man, free to carry out the most horrific crimes. Ian David Carslake Watkins was brought up in Pontypridd and went to Hawthorne High School.
Let's go back to the beginning and tell us a bit about how it happened for you as a band. Does it go back to school?
Yeah, we all grew up together. Basically, we all lived within a few acres of each other, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Watkins studied graphic design and graduated with a first from South Wales University. He got a job as a graphic designer, but he was distracted by his first love, music.
We never really turned down a gig, you know what I mean? We play anywhere. If some kid would see us at a gig and say, "Oh, it's my birthday next week, will you come and play in the garage?" And we were like, "Yeah."
Tell us about when you went out to America.
Music presenter and journalist Bethan Elvin interviewed the band for that TV programme and continued to chart their progress for years.
The heavy rock music of the South Wales Valleys became international, and largely thanks to the Lost Prophets, because they were one of the first bands that signed huge international record deals. They signed to managers that the biggest rock bands in the world were looking after. And really, it was so surprising because they came from nowhere. They were just kids, they were school friends, and they were from a small town like Pontypridd that really hadn't seen anything like it before.
As the lead singer and frontman of the band, it was Ian Watkins who attracted a lot of the attention.
He was great fun, and he was a funny character. He was charismatic, he was energetic, enthusiastic about what he was doing, and just, I suppose loved getting the attention, really.
Yeah.
The band were real rock stars now, and Ian Watkins let the cameras into his home in Pontypridd.
Ow! Oh, glass. None today. No, I've got 4 pints here.
Just weeks later, Watkins was contacted by a woman who would go on to expose him as a paedophile. Joanne Majelix got in touch with the Lost Prophets star on the internet. She ended up exchanging messages online with Watkins and agreed to meet him in a hotel before a concert in Leeds.
He was really charismatic, charming, and just totally I don't know, just normal.
Would it be fair to say that he swept you off your feet?
Well, yeah, he did. As I got to know him, I saw him as the guy that took care of his family, looked after his mum.
Watkins and Joanne, who was an escort, began a sexual relationship. But later he began to tell her things which made her feel uneasy.
It starts off with him saying to me about all these 14-year-old fans that he'd abused and took the virginity of. And he'd also been saying that he wanted to get me pregnant. He wanted to get me pregnant just so that he could abuse the baby.
Joanne threatened to report him to the police because she suspected he was abusing a young child. She says Watkins begged her not to, and he got his solicitors to draw up a gagging order against her.
He presents you with a document which in effect claims that you made all this up.
That I was a liar.
That you were a liar.
Yeah. And
you signed it?
Yeah. I was forced to sign it really under duress, but I signed it because I'd sought legal advice as well.
And what advice had you been given?
That I could still go to the police, because he was threatening me, saying I couldn't go to the police. He was saying I couldn't even go to the police if I'd signed that.
Is it possible that the police have taken a sceptical view of you and your story because of the gagging order, because this document exists which you signed,
I think it's an excuse.
in which you said that I've made all this up?
I think it's an excuse. It's an excuse because I can't make up a child, can I?
Having signed the gagging order, Joanne received £2,000 from Watkins for what she says was services she provided him as an escort. At the end of December 2008, Joanne did go ahead and contact South Wales Police at the Child Protection Unit at Pontypridd Police Station. Joanne says she did more than tell the police about the disturbing things that Watkins had told her. She also says she sent them a copy of this photograph. It shows a young girl of about 4 years of age who's holding a photo frame with the picture of a scantily clad woman. On top of the frame is a razor blade and a thin line of white powder. In her other hand, the girl is holding a rolled up £20 note. It appears to be drugs paraphernalia. And Joanne says Watkins told her the white powder was cocaine. We can't show the picture for legal reasons. Joanne told us, for the first time, that she went to Rhondda Cynon Taf Social Services as well as the police to tell them about the girl in the picture.
Did they tell you what action they were taking?
No. See, they wouldn't. And this is what was so frustrating for me, because I was reporting every single time that I made reports. I was then basically left out of the loop. You know, you've reported it now, we can't discuss this any further, we can't tell you what we've done. You know, and it'd be like, but you need to tell me, is she safe yet or what, you know?
But she says she kept going back to social services with continued concerns about the girl.
You know, it was repeated calls about the same little girl over time. Every time I knew that my complaints were not going anywhere with the police, I would back it up by getting social services to do something and say, can't you do something about this?
David Niven is a leading child protection consultant and a former chairman of the British Association of Social Workers. We showed him the picture, anonymised, of the girl and asked him for his expert opinion.
It's totally inappropriate and it's totally wrong and it should be looked into. All I can't tell from a photograph is whether that's really drugs or whatever, but the actual staging of it is, to my mind, inappropriate for a child.
Joanne thought her evidence, the picture of the child, together with her concerns about Watkins, would trigger immediate action by the police.
They just kept telling me the same excuse. They haven't decided how to interview me yet. That was the standard excuse that they were using at that time. And I'm saying to them, but you need to get her out of his way. You need to get her out of danger.
In April 2009, 3 months after she first reported Watkins to police in Pontypridd, she was visited at her home in Yorkshire by an officer who took a video statement. A month later, she says a detective sergeant from South Wales Police told her they weren't going to investigate any further.
Did he give you any explanation?
Not enough evidence. And I said, but it is happening. And I said, if anything happens to another child, it's on your head, not mine, because I know that he will continue.
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there, and I'm going to get into his chart a little bit, and then I'll play the next clip. So here's his chart right here. He was born July 30th, 1977. He has Sun and Saturn in Leo, Mercury in Virgo, Venus and Jupiter, both at the 26th degree of Gemini, Mars in Gemini, conjoined to Black Moon Lilith, which is interesting. He has Chiron in Taurus. His nodes are at the 18th degree of Aries, South Node, North Node, 18th degree of Libra, Uranus in Scorpio, Neptune in Sagittarius, and Moon in Aquarius. So birth number 30. 30 is the number of the loner. And to live the type of lifestyle he did can be representative of a loner or a lone wolf, which is very much that Aries South Node. You know, when you're a predator of his caliber, not a lot of people are going to want to be your friend. Also, freedom, court case, excess. 30 produces excess, where the person cannot get enough. Reckless abandon, and also 30 can produce a superiority complex, which he definitely had. His life path number being 9. 9 is about self-absorption, but also raw sexual energy, violence, destructiveness, and animalistic behavior. 9 can also behave in an immature way as well. So let's talk about this South Node at the 18th degree of Aries. So that 18, as I've told y'all before, it produces conflict between the material and spiritual side of life. It produces egotism and narcissism, especially malignant narcissism, hypersexuality, violence. All of this is the 18th degree of Aries, South Node. Conflict, numbers of conflict. Also giving self over to base animalistic side. Low vibrational, that 18th degree of Aries is some low vibrational energy. So it can make it hard to become refined with so much low vibrational energy impacting this person in terms of their personality, their emotional makeup. And that 18th degree of Aries explains a lot. It's the underlying reason why he's committed these egregious acts. Especially when you take into account that the South Node is opposing Pluto and the North Node. So with this is him abusing people to satisfy his selfish motives, finding women who will take part in his taboo activity, the criminal charges that have ensued, the trial that was one of the works, being in a dark corridor of sex, death, and destruction, demonic influences. So here's the opposition right here. And again, I don't have his birth time, so I don't know the house placements. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if he was a Scorpio rising, which would put that North Node in the 12th house, and secrecy was a big theme. Videos was a major theme. And victimization, which is all dealing with that 12th house. But again, I'm not going to go too deep into the houses because that's speculation on my part. So Saturn, the mythology of Saturn is that Saturn was the father, the old man, and because he didn't want anybody to overthrow him, he would eat his children. So this is a depiction of Saturn, and it's called Saturn devouring his son. And this is exactly what Ian Watkins was doing in the spiritual sense. So he has a fire grand trine in his chart consisting of Saturn, Neptune, and the South Node. So that fire grand trine, let me just outline it. Here's Saturn, Neptune, South Node. And like I said before, you'll find a lot of serial killers having grand trines in their chart. And you could consider Ian Watkins a serial killer in that he was killing souls of children by abusing them. You could say he's a soul eater, demon type of individual. But that grand trine enabled him to get away with his crimes for quite a while. So again, Saturn's in the mix with this grand trine. So he was able to embody the spirit of Saturn through this grand trine. So enabled him to live out his satanic fantasies. Also, his satanic fantasies involving children with Saturn being in Leo. Also, this represented him being in the music industry, enabled his narcissism and self-aggrandizement, having police protection due to his celebrity status, belonging to a pedo network, perhaps. Most of these high-level child predators do belong to a network of themselves, of people like them. This is a very disgusting picture. Trigger warning, you know, there's some, this is the worst image I have in here, actually. And thank God it's a doll and not a real baby. But even the fact that it's a doll baby is repulsive enough. But this is just driving the point home about how he doesn't have any remorse about what he's doing and how he's fully conscious of what he's doing and how he's bragging about it or taking pride in it. So his south node is running parallel to the fixed star Betelgeuse, and Betelgeuse is a star of great fortune and fame, but it also manifests as calamities, danger, and violence. And the reason why I included this picture is because Betelgeuse is in the constellation of Orion, and it's right at Orion's right shoulder. So I just thought it was interesting that he's holding this dial on his right shoulder. Sometimes this shit be literal when it comes to what's in the chart. Like Neptune, which is part of that grand trine, is running parallel to Polis, which is a star that deals with a foal, which is a baby horse. But I'm just looking at the fact about, baby, and that applies to, his situation. Martial desires, martial meaning warlike desires, high ambitions, domination, and spiritual power. Some of these creeps believe that they derive spiritual power by abusing people, namely children. And here we go right here. I always tell y'all about this Hebe asteroid, which is the confirmation that I look for when it comes to these child predators, because Hebe is representing that, not always, but sometimes. So Saturn, his Saturn's in Leo. Leo deals with children. Saturn running parallel to Hebe. And Hebe's at the 25th degree of Cancer, which is representing him being able to convince these women to hand over their children. And it can also represent women who are on drugs, women who like his music, women who are mentally ill, women who have no boundaries, women who are sick. So his North Node is at the 18th degree of Libra. And this can deal with relationships that are based upon his selfish motives, abusive relationships, using people, being viewed by females as a bad boy sex symbol, violence inflicted upon others, and the court case involving sexual assault. His North Node is conjoined to the star Mufrid, and that produces strong desires, a tendency towards excess, which coincides with his 30 birth number, and occultism. Now, Mercury is forming a sesqui-square with his South Node and a semi-square with his North Node. His Mercury is in Virgo, and Virgo represents police. Virgo is one of the signs that deals with law enforcement, police. Capricorn deals with law enforcement and police as well, but the overall law enforcement, police. But Virgo is dealing with the cops that actually go out and do the work. And remember, they were talking about, the police, this issue with this cop. Mind is very much conditioned by his beast-like animalistic past life tendencies. Again, the beast-like animalistic past life tendencies are coming from that Aries South Node, 18th degree of Aries in particular. Destroying innocence, that Mercury in Virgo, Virgo is innocence. Now, one of the quotes of this story is, one of possessing an extreme pornographic image involving a sex act on an animal. So when they raided his house and confiscated his electronic devices, basically they're saying they found one of the photos possessing an extreme pornographic image involving a sex act on an animal. Virgo rules pets, animals the size of a goat or smaller. Also, this is pointing to the fact that he delighted in the fact that this 16-year-old fan of his was a virgin and he had sex with her and all that. He's had sex with a number of underage girls, and then he started to transition over to children. The police not wanting to arrest him due to who he was, despite Joanne, his ex-girlfriend or the ex-escort that he was dealing with, bringing evidence to them numerous times. And this just goes to show that these celebrities are able to get away with a lot of dirt because of who they are. And you never know, the cop that was botching the investigation, he could have been a child predator himself. having Joanne sign the non-disclosure agreement, which you'll see about when I play the second clip. So Ian Watkins had Joanne sign a non-disclosure agreement when he told her about his predilection towards abusing children. So he had Sun sextile Mars in his chart, Mars in Gemini, Sun in Leo. He was at the head of his class when in school, performing with his schoolmates. They already talked about that in the clip. Creativity channel into drawing and writing. He was a graphic artist, and I think he wrote some of the songs for the Lost Prophets. The media attention he received due to being a celebrity, having easy access to children. The Sun rules children and Leo rules children. So that Leo Sun is just compounding the children theme. Plenty of opportunities to have sex due to his celebrity status. So here's his chart right here. Here's that sextile between the Sun and Mars. Here's the sesame square with Mercury and the South Node right here. This red dotted line. And then we have Mercury semi-square, that North Node, which is a red dotted line too, or dashed line. He also has Sun trine Neptune. So this deals with him becoming a celebrity in the music industry, traveling all over the world with Neptune being in Sagittarius, ability to live out fantasies, gaining access to see porn. Y'all know what I mean. Leo, children, Sun, children. And I gotta watch what I say in this video. Ability to operate in secret for years. But you know, if you noticed in that video clip, they basically was just stating it plainly, the CR word. I was like, wow. So again, for some people, this might be triggering. Some of y'all might not be able to get through this whole video. And I understand, because this is the darkest of the dark. And like I said, that he's representing the darkest side of Leo. Creating videos of himself and being in videos. Ability to continue to enjoy himself while in prison. Neptune ruling prison. So here's that Sun trine Neptune aspect, that blue line leading from the Sun. You see his Sun is at the 7th degree, which is music, artistry, but it can also deal with victimization. And when we're dealing with the Sun at the 7th degree of Leo, that's victimization of a child. 7 is also dealing with secrets. So the fact that his Sun is at the 7th degree and it's in trine with Neptune, this is a big part of the reason why he was able to maintain his dark secret for a while. And with trines and sextiles, which are positive aspects in the chart, they facilitate things, they make things easy. Know that evil people can use those beneficial aspects, those positive aspects, to commit evil deeds. It facilitates evil as well as it facilitates good. These aspects, they don't discriminate between good and evil, the trine and the sextile. So they will facilitate an evil person's deeds. So he has a fixed grand cross in his chart, and that consists of the Sun, Moon, Uranus, and Chiron. And this fixed grand cross is greatly responsible for the way he is and the egregious acts that he has committed upon children. So the fixed cross, and in his case, it basically is representing a self-created, well-reinforced cage for the lion, meaning he won't stop unless someone puts the evil lion down. A long-term predicament centering on his base desires. So fixed grand crosses can produce a very long predicament, allowing his vices to dominate his life. His vices has him in a cage. So you can look at the grand cross as a cage. And when it's a fixed grand cross, it's a well-reinforced cage. It's a cage that is very hard to get out of. And in his case, he created this cage himself. It's a self-imposed, self-created cage. So again, allowing vices to dominate his life. Vices has him in a cage. Also, women, which is represented by the moon that's in this fixed grand cross, bring fresh meat to his cage. So again, you got to think of this fool like an evil demonic lion because he's a Leo. And there's this story about these two rogue lions. They actually made a movie about it, The Ghost and the Darkness. And they killed like a lot of people. And it just made just learning about Ian Watkins and with him being a Leo just made me think about those rogue lions who are just bent upon killing. Being part of a community/network of predators can also be viewed as a snare for his victims. So again, Ian was getting women to throw that fresh meat into the cage, the fresh meat being their babies, their children. Also, this quote, he also said Watkins posed a significant risk to the public, in particular to women with young children. So this was the justice that was ruling on the case. So he said that Watkins posed a significant risk to the public, and that's dealing with that fixed grand cross as well. So again, it's like, okay, now we have to lock him into a cage because he's a threat to the public. Detective Chief Inspector Peter Doyle, senior investigating officer, said the sentences reflected the gravity of the crimes and the investigation uncovered the most disturbing child abuse evidence he had ever seen in his 28 years as an officer. Now, this is where I disagree about the sentencing. I don't believe they reflected the gravity of his crimes. I believe he should have been sentenced to death, but I don't think the UK has a death penalty. Correct me if I'm wrong, but what he did, somebody like him can't be reformed. He didn't have remorse. I believe he still doesn't have remorse. Somebody like him needs to just be taken out of here, need to be put down. And this is what I mean. They need to just put this lion down. Being sentenced to 35 years in prison. Now, they say he was sentenced to 29, but they also say 35, but I think he was able to, it was something about time served or something like that. So it changed to 29. But if he does 2/3 of his time with good behavior, he can get out. So that's what I mean. Like, I don't believe that the sentences he was given reflects the gravity of his crimes, especially with this investigator saying the most disturbing child abuse evidence he has ever seen in his 28 years. Somebody like that needs to be put down. Like, this is the thing that really bugs me about these justice systems. They want to preserve these murderers and these sex offenders' lives, these ones that commit the most egregious acts, but they don't care. It's like, where's the justice for these babies? Where's the justice for these kids? Because he's ruined these babies' lives forever, the ones that he abused. So here's the lion in the cage. Again, this is Ian Watkins with that fixed grand cross. And look at him snarling like a fucking demonic lion. You can't make this shit up. In a cage of his own making. So let me just highlight this fixed grand cross, because this is representing his predicament in terms of him just being in a self-created cage of his own making. And with that, he wasn't going to stop, because we're talking about fixed energy. So somebody had to stop him. And now he's in a cage in terms of being in prison. But remember, I said he has Sun trine Neptune, Neptune ruling prisons. He could still have a good time in prison. And he also has Sun sextile Mars, so he can make it through. He's not the type that's suffering in prison, if you ask me. He also has Saturn trine Neptune as well. So he's doing fine, if you ask me. So again, where's the real punishment? He got off very lightly, if you ask me. The women got off very lightly too. I believe they got like 14 and 16 years. So he has Sun opposition Moon. Now let's break down this fixed grand cross he got. So sun opposition moon, that's part of that fixed grand cross. And this is where he's being surrounded by crowds of women / girls due to his celebrity, developing a sizable fan base, but also where his image is at odds with his perverted private life. So he's a celebrity with a perverted private life, perverted views of children. Women giving their children over to him due to their own perverted nature, because that moon in Aquarius can represent a woman that is a pervert. Also, this is representing how much his mother is willing to tolerate, because she supported him throughout this trial. I think she's still supporting him. She claims that, you know, she don't think he did anything or he's guilty or whatever. So I think he probably pushed the envelope his entire life with respect to his mother. And his mother was detached and permissive. So he got away with a lot dealing with his mother growing up, I believe. And mother may have been naked around him a lot or exposed him to some kind of perversion, because moon in Aquarius, in not all cases, but in some cases, that could be a perverted mother, or it could be a mother that is showing her body a lot, walking around naked all the time like it ain't no big deal. Aquarius is a sign of nudity. So here's that sun moon opposition right here. He has sun square Chiron, which is part of the fixed grand cross. And I told y'all about this sun square Chiron. I said it's one of the worst aspects for a person to have. It can make the person depraved, deviant, debauched, just a total maniac, or somebody that's a monster. So this is dealing with specifically Ian inflicting wounds upon a child or children, assaulting a child or children, sexual deviant, debauched, monstrous, psychopath, goes against society. Also, this is dealing with the evidence, which is Chiron and Taurus. Taurus rules evidence. Evidence is presented against him, prompting him to admit guilt. And here is a depiction of a lion in the wild. He has just killed one of the cubs of a rival pride of lions, because when male lions want to take over a pride, they will kill the cubs. And so again, you got to take astrology literally. And people that are Leos, they are embodying that lion spirit. And some of them are embodying the dark side of lions, as Ian Watkins is. So this is part of the dark side of nature. It happens. So Ian abusing these children is basically akin to a male lion killing these cubs. And they do it for power and dominance, to maintain power and dominance. And again, it's about that superiority. And that superiority is coming through that 30 birth number. So Sun square Uranus, which is part of that fixed grand cross. This is another very problematic aspect. It's a red flag aspect in terms of if you're looking for potential mates, especially males that have this aspect. So this is about him going rogue. And I told you about those rogue lions that were killing people. Being rebellious, going against society. So the fact that he has both Sun square Chiron and Sun square Uranus, it makes perfect sense why he is a monster. Sexual pervert and deviant, with that Uranus being in Scorpio. Sociopath, psychopath. Objectification of children. And you can even say destruction of children too, with Uranus being in Scorpio. Friends distance themselves from him. So that's what happened when the stories started coming out. But his friends, a lot of his friends already knew what was up, already knew what he was doing and stuff, but they chose to keep quiet. And I'll show you signs of that later on in this case study. Demonic influence, with that Uranus being in Scorpio, but where he willfully gives into the temptation to do evil. And again, this is part of the reason why I believe that Uranus is in the first house. because it's representing this is who he is, like a sexual pervert, demon in the flesh type of character. Also, this quote, he also said Watkins posed a significant risk to the public, in particular to the women with young children. So again, this quote deals with that whole fixed grand cross, but it's dealing with this square in particular that's part of the fixed grand cross. Now his son is opposing Lilith, the asteroid Lilith, that is. And this deals with Joanne being the one who wasn't down with his evil acts. Also, Sun opposition Moon is dealing with that too. So while it can deal with he has these women that are willing to give over their children, it could also deal with where he's at odds with a woman. So it's also representing Sun opposition Lilith as well. So Joanne, the one you saw in the video, being the one who wasn't down with his evil acts, breaking away in the process. Image becomes that of a social pariah with Lilith and sex offender. His son is conjoined to Persephone, which is a star that manifests as inner drive, reclusiveness, blindness. Now, this could be spiritual blindness, murder, tragedy, fires, homosexuality, violent death. Hopefully he will suffer a violent death. It can make one fortunate in business, but liable to loss and disgrace. Sun parallel Mufrid, this star has already came up. Strong desires, a tendency towards excess, and occultism. I believe Neptune was running parallel to Mufrid. So he also has Moon square Uranus, which is part of that fixed grand cross. Sociopathic and psychopathic personality, warped mentality, no regard for the feelings and well-being of others. Ex-girlfriend turns on him. Well, she really wasn't a girlfriend. She was more of an escort, but, you know, she befriended him. He would consider it betrayal with Uranus being in Scorpio. She tried to put the lion down, but the police were working against him. Against her. Also, it was reported that he had a filthy home and he wasn't washing for days, which is another reason why I believe he had Uranus in Scorpio in that first house, which can make a person look disheveled, and that Scorpio can produce body odor. Attracting women who are sexual perverts. All of his electronic devices were confiscated by investigators. Also, this quote, it was said that this case breaks new ground. Any decent person will experience shock, revulsion, and incredulity. My bad. Also, that same statement about Watkins posing a significant risk. And also, he told woman A, this is the justice when he was sentencing Ian or ruling on the case, he said to woman A, who was one of the co-defendants, what you were both doing is both sickening and incomprehensible, and said to woman B that she did not regard her child as a human being. So again, this is dealing with the women that he attracted that are sexual perverts and how the justice is chiding them, chastising them. But again, I feel like the sentence that they received was not stiff enough. So she, which was Watkins' defense attorney, said Watkins had no memory of the crime involving woman A and her son, where he admitted to attempted rape of a blank. Gotta be careful what I say. So that Moon square Uranus can deal with lapses in memory because Uranus is in Scorpio. So that could deal with the erasure of memory. And it could be due to him being on drugs at the time. But again, that's no excuse because his intention was already there. He intended to do this. So even if he has lapses in memory, and again, that could be brought on by the drug use, he was a heavy drug user, that's no excuse because his intentions were never pure. His intentions were evil from the start. Moon square Chiron. This produces a deviant personality, attracting deviant women. Ex-girlfriend or the ex-escort Joanne, gathering evidence against him. Again, that Chiron and Taurus, that's evidence. You could say that's damning evidence. Also, his messy home. He was probably hoarding a lot of stuff with Chiron and Taurus influencing that moon. He also said Watkins posed a significant risk to the public, in particular to women with young children. So again, that quote resurfaces because this square is part of that fixed grand cross. He told woman A, what you were both doing is both sickening and incomprehensible. Instead, to woman B, that she did not regard her child as a human being. So again, that moon square Chiron is representing that quote as well. And again, this all ties into that fixed grand cross. Tell me about your mother, like Sigmund Freud would say. So again, his mother backed him throughout this trial. She supported him. You know, she's still looking at her son like my little baby. So it makes me really question what's up with the mother, and those aspects involving his moon says a lot. So again, moon square Uranus and Chiron, it's representing his dealings with these perverted women, but also, you know, Joanne blowing the whistle on him, providing that evidence against him, but it's also representing his mother. So with moon square Uranus and Chiron, mom could also be a pervert in her own way. She could have touched him inappropriately when he was a child. I wouldn't be surprised with these squares. Or she could have been exposing herself to him. Remember, I told you about that sun opposition moon, and also the fact that the moon alone is in Aquarius. That could be a mom that's weird, a mom that's a pervert, a mom that doesn't have any shame and that's not discreet. Mom wasn't discreet with sex life. Also, incestual relations with mother is possible. And again, I wouldn't put it past this lady, because if you're willing to support your son on this shit, come on now, says a lot about this person. So before we get into the grand trine and his chart, his other grand trine, let's get back into this video. We'll show this. I'll show the second clip. Just give me a minute. I don't feel like stop and share to pull up the slides, so I'm just going back. Okay. So I believe I left off at like 10 minutes, 6 seconds. So let me just. Okay, I think it's 10:03, so we'll start here.
And social services would convene a strategy meeting that would involve the key people that they were aware of in that child's life. That's the whole point, is making collective, collaborative decisions about a situation.
Rhondda Cynon-Taffe Social Services says it did take action in line with agreed procedures following Joanne's report to them in December 2008. It's 2009 and the Lost Prophets are regularly headlining huge rock festivals in this country and abroad. Earlier in his career, Watkins had shunned drink and drugs and was what's called straight-edged. But now his behavior was beginning to worry those around him.
Being straight edge, let me just, interject this real quick. Him starting off as being straight edge is very much his Mercury in Virgo, because Virgo is about being on the straight and narrow. But remember, Mercury's in sesqui square with that Aries South node, which means that at some point the beast-like part of him took over.
We've spoken to a close friend of Watkins who told us of her concerns. She doesn't wish to be identified, and an actress tells her story.
He was an amazing guy, and then the drugs happened. It started with coke, and then ecstasy, and then in LA he found crystal meth. And that's what he became scared of. That became his everything. It was more important than anything. We all tried to help him. He was an extremist. He was completely straight-edged. And then he just turned into a complete junkie.
The band were spending a lot of time in Los Angeles recording their music.
He was constantly off his face. He wouldn't shout.
And let me just interject this to the major change that took place in terms of him changing his persona because of the drug use. That can be seen through his Mars opposition Neptune in his chart. But I'll talk more about that as we get through this case study.
Shower for days. His apartment was a complete wreck.
Fast forward to the beginning of...
Remember, apartment was a complete wreck. That's that moon square Uranus, also moon square Chiron.
2010, and the band come home. They performed at Hawthorne High in Pontypridd, where a number of the band members went to school, including Ian Watkins. They were supporting a Welsh government campaign to promote the valleys. A few months later, Joanne gets back in touch with Watkins, believing she must have been wrong about him, and she apologizes.
I thought, maybe I did get it wrong. Maybe I did, because, you know, the police didn't do anything about it, and he was saying all along that it was just coke talk and it wasn't real. So maybe I did get it wrong. So I contact him and I say to him, oh, I'm sorry that I reported you. I must have got it wrong because the police didn't do anything.
A couple of weeks later, they meet up at a hotel in Leeds, and Joanne is horrified by a video on his laptop, which he says shows a young girl being raped.
He sat there and he's just staring at me with this evil smirk on his face, because he wanted a reaction. And I could just feel the tears.
I'm sorry I keep stopping this, but she said evil smirk on his face. That's that Aquarius moon squaring Uranus and Scorpio. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if that Uranus was in his first house, which would explain that evil smirk to a T.
And I'm thinking at the same time, oh my God, I wasn't wrong about him. I wasn't wrong about him. And at the same time in my head, I'm thinking, I've got to report him again, but I can't report him again because what am I going to say? He's got this video on his laptop. He's just going to hide the laptop like he hid everything else the last time.
Joanne says she threw him out of the hotel, and despite her grave concerns, didn't feel able to go to the police again at this stage because she didn't think they would believe her. In October 2010, South Wales Police received information from the Metropolitan Police detailing allegations against Watkins. But significantly, the complaint wasn't made by Joanne Majelix. We don't know who the complainant was or what action was taken. 9 months later, Watkins is back recording in Los Angeles.
He started telling me about this 5-year-old girl that he's been raping on a regular basis in Los Angeles. And I asked him whose child it was, and he said, oh, she's just some obsessed junkie mum. And that's the first time he'd ever mentioned, like, using a fan's child.
Watkins sent 3 indecent images to her BlackBerry phone. A shocked Joanne got back in touch with South Wales Police with fresh concerns. She was referred back to the same child protection unit at Pontypridd Police Station and the same detective sergeant.
He said, oh, he wants you to, it's in Los Angeles, did you say? And I said, yeah. And it was like he just, I could tell in his voice that he couldn't be arsed, basically. He just...
Or that he didn't believe you.
Yeah, but I'm telling him that I've got the pictures, and I'm telling him that I needed someone to come and look.
Was it that he just didn't believe you?
Maybe he thought, but why would I make that up?
Fearing that her various concerns about Watkins...
Again, as you can see, the police aren't taking her seriously because they don't want to, because this is a celebrity. And I'm pretty sure they've protected other celebrities in the past. And there's probably some of these cops that do what Ian does too. And that's why they weren't really interested in trying to go after him in the beginning.
Watkins aren't being followed up. Joanne turns to the father of the little girl in the picture, and she's shocked to discover that he knows nothing about the photograph involving his daughter.
He called me late one Saturday night, and I said to him, were you aware of a complaint I'd made against Ian? And he said no. And I said, well, I did in 2008. And I said, that's strange because I made Child Services promised me that they would speak to you, and they said, oh yeah, in all cases we have to speak to both parents.
We've spoken to the child's father, and he's confirmed that he did report the matter to South Wales Police, but he says he was told not to pursue it anymore because it could ruin Ian's career. The father also asked what social services had done, and he was told that they'd looked into the allegations and that they were satisfied his daughter was safe. It's now March 2012 and events begin to move quickly. Watkins' offending appears to be getting worse, but despite warnings to South Wales Police, he's able to carry on abusing children unchecked. Joanne is in contact with a woman on Twitter who in turn knows Watkins. Joanne is concerned that Watkins may have access to the woman's young child.
We exchange a few emails and then we exchange phone numbers, and she calls me and I tell her that I'm wanting to make an appointment to go and see the police to make a statement again and to give them my laptop. And I said, have you got anything? And she said, well, yeah, he's told me that he wants to put GHB in his sippy cup and on his dummy and rape him.
Joanne agrees with the woman to visit her local police station at Doncaster a few days later, but she fails to turn up.
She's totally obsessed with this man and she's siding with him. I know she is, and that baby's in danger because he's already been in contact with that baby. Most shockingly, a month before I'm telling them he's going to rape a baby, a month before, he actually does.
Just weeks later, Watkins and the young mother meet up in a hotel in London and attempt to rape her baby boy. They even video the horrific offence. She will eventually be caught, along with Watkins, and jailed, but not yet.
Hey you guys, everybody get home safely. Thank you so much.
That very same night, Watkins had been at a party promoting the band's new album. The next day, he was doing media interviews.
There's a special kind of cachet, if you like, about celebrity abusers. We've had it with Gary Glitter, we've had it with Jonathan King, we've seen it with Jimmy Savile, whatever. Because the abuse of children essentially is the abuse of power as much as sexual abuse. I mean, and if you give somebody almost unlimited power and they are inclined to abuse children, then you're putting together a toxic formula. And that essentially is probably what happened with Watkins.
So he just explained that grand trine in his chart. He broke it down. And being a celebrity, having that protection, other celebrities have been able to get away with this shit too. And because of the trines in their chart, grand trines. So yeah, that's just the way it is. That's the way the world works.
While she says she wasn't aware of his offending, Watkins' friend was increasingly worried about his behaviour.
The record company gave him an intervention. The band and the management sat him down. And in April 2012, he was the worst he had ever been. The band was so close to breaking up because he was so awful. They tried really hard. He was never doing anything, but he couldn't be watched 24 hours a day.
At this time,
and somebody with Moon square Uranus, moon square Chiron, sun square Uranus, sun square Chiron. That's somebody that does need supervision, even as an adult. You can't trust them with hardly anything.
Essex police contacted detectives in South Wales and passed on further information and further allegations about Watkins. These new concerns followed the reports by Joanne, the father of the girl in the photograph, and the Metropolitan Police. The cause for suspicion appeared to be growing.
All right, so I'll stop right there. And then let me get back into his chart, and then I'll play the final clip. Just getting past all this. Okay. So he had a fire grand trine, or he has a fire grand trine, but he also has an air grand trine in his chart, consisting of his Aquarius moon, Mars in Gemini, and Pluto in Libra. Now, this helped him to achieve academic excellence when he was a kid. Now, grand trines, they are aspect patterns that provide self-containment, where there is no outside interference, at least for a while. So again, grand trines will enable a person to get away with their evil acts for a while. Again, those cops, they weren't really investigating the story. They kept dismissing what Joanne was saying because they didn't want to investigate it because of his celebrity. Also, that air grand trine provides insulation and protection. It explains why he was given a light sentence considering his crimes, with Pluto being in Libra. That's the justice system. That's also representing his sentencing. And yeah, I believe he got off pretty light. Now, this grand trine made it easy for him to find girls and women who would indulge his perverted evil desires. And it made it easy for him to operate undercover. It made it easy for him to justify living an immoral and perverse life. This air grand trine can result in him not having any remorse for what he does. And it shows that he's conscious of these evil deeds that he's doing despite being on drugs. Friends kept their knowledge of Watkins' evil deeds to themselves. So he has moon trine Mars, which is part of that air grand trine. So this is showing that he was always surrounded by girls when he was young, attracting schoolgirls, receiving fan mail from women, finding perverted women. Also, this makes me think that he was on the dark web, so dark web access, discussing and displaying his perversion through a forum, perhaps. And I think it was reported that he was sharing pictures with other predators. Mom goes along with whatever he says. Mother was very permissive when he was growing up. Woman gives him a phone while he's in prison. More about that in a minute. Ability to engage in perverted behavior without a conscience. Because that Mars in Gemini, Gemini is a sign of immorality. And it doesn't have ethics. Now, I'm not saying Gemini people alone are immoral. I'm saying the sign by itself is not prone to morality, or is not inclined to morality. And then when you have moon in Aquarius, like this could be a dangerous trine actually, because again, the person is able to justify and rationalize any kind of behavior, no matter how perverted. Now, of course, there has to be other things in the chart that would produce a person such as this, because other people will have moon trine Mars and they'll do good with it. But because of the other aspects in his chart, this moon trine Mars enables him to operate without a conscience and to have no remorse for what he's done. So again, this quote had shown a complete lack of remorse, pointing to this moon trine Mars, but other aspects as well. So here's Mars in Gemini, and here's that moon. And that air energy, again, it can cause people to rationalize, and justify any type of behavior. Mars trine Pluto, which is part of that air grand trine. So this basically is the personification of a demon. And again, we're talking in Ian Watkins' case in particular, because other people can have this trine and they have nothing to do with demons. But in Ian Watkins' case, yes. Also, where he consciously commits evil deeds with the help of women, consciously being represented by that Mars and Gemini. He knows exactly what he's doing. He thinks about it and then does it. Ease in influencing women. So here's another quote. The judge said Watkins had a corrupting influence. So that Mars trine Pluto is representing that. And also he had Moon trine Mars that represents his ease in getting women to do what he wants them to do. The ability to engage in sexual taboos unhindered. Sexual taboos facilitated through willing participants. Ability to smuggle phone into prison by sticking it up his anus. So there was an article that came out. Once he was in prison, he still wanted to be able to contact women and have them send him pictures and videos of them abusing their children. And he had, or I'll say he was able to smuggle a phone into prison by sticking it up his ass. True story. And that Mars trine Pluto enabled him to do that. Also, this is another aspect that can give him access to the dark web, especially if Pluto's in the 11th house, as I suspect. Legal system is on his side. Someone in a position of power was allowing him to continue to do evil, as that first video is pointing to, which I'll play the last 10 minutes of in a minute. Moon trine Pluto, being a member of the band, the Lost Prophets, getting perverted women to engage in his sexual taboos, having no shortage of sexual opportunities, ease in influencing certain women. So again, that's that corrupting influence he has. The judge said Watkins had a corrupting influence. So there it is again. Again, this can deal with dark web access and transactions, which that Aquarius moon is dealing with the web, and then the Pluto is representing the dark web. Having his weird ass mother support, having the law on his side, again with Pluto being in Libra, ability to operate undercover, embracing the demonic side of life. So here are some quotes from some of his friends and associates, which just proves that a lot of these people knew what type of creep, what type of monster he was, but nobody came forward. So again, those grand trines in his chart, the fire grand trine, the air grand trine, it gave him the cloak of invisibility. It allowed him to operate unhindered. It's all true, someone said, and about him molesting kids. This poor excuse for a man disgusts me now. I used to know him, and I'm ashamed to say love him till I found out the truth about him. If more of us came forward, we get this pedo where he belongs, away from kids for good. He used to frighten me with his talk about what he wants to do to babies, not just girls, baby boys too. I wish I'd done something when I had the chance. Boys or girls, Ian pays his sluts to let him blank their kids. He even takes pics and vids of these kids. The stuff about him messing with kids is true too. Anyone he goes with who has kids, he's either done stuff to them or tried to. It happened to a friend, but he scared her into not doing anything about it because of other illegal things they've done together. Unfortunately, I concur. I know of at least one skank who is obsessed with Ian. She actually gave him her young daughter. Use your imagination for the rest of the disgusting details. Ian is a kitty fiddler. He has child pee from Russia on his computer and on flash drives. Fact, lots of girls and women who have sense don't want anything to do with him. The guy is a loser. Everyone has had a lucky escape from him. He's evil, just nasty, twisted, sick, and evil. Manipulative game player who spreads lies about everyone else to disguise the fact that he is the lying, sick psychopath, blank, who needs locking up. All right, let's move on. So he has Moon conjoined to the asteroid Lilith. And this is reinforcing the perverted women. women who give their children over to Watkins, the demon Lilith being either attached to him, the women, or both, because Lilith is a demon that kills children, being on the sex offender list, being a pariah, a plague upon society. Moon is running parallel to Pandora. Joanne, his girlfriend or escort, goes to the police after Ian told her about some of his assaults on the underage girls, because Pandora deals with whistleblowing and where you release some damning information that cannot be put back. Now, the women provide their testimony, evidence that is found online as well. Moon parallel the fixed star Zarak, and Zarak produces melancholy, fear of death, and suicidal tendencies. And he was put on suicide watch during the trial, or while he was locked up in the beginning. Mars conjunct Aldebaran, that's a fixed star that manifests as warmongering, agitation, danger, loss, and violent death. Again, now that would be justice if he suffered a violent death, but it needs to happen quickly. So here's Joanne right here. She's the one that blew the whistle on Ian. If it wasn't for her, he would still be free committing these egregious crimes unless some other woman would have came forward, or one of his friends that already knew what he was up to. So he has Mars and Gemini, quincunx Uranus and Scorpio, and this is one of the aspects that makes him a monster. So this is where he consciously succumbs to demonic attachment. Methamphetamine opened the door, in my opinion, because there is this thing called meth demons, and hardcore meth users will talk about how they had experiences with demons where either they became a demon or they saw demons or they were committing demonic acts. The shit is deep. So meth is what really opened the door, but he was already predisposed to be like this. So you could say the meth facilitated the demon to come in. So this quincunx is dealing with Ian shape-shifting back and forth between human and demon. And this is how he was able to just act like he was a normal person sometimes, and then other times he would allow this monster to just come out. And again, the shape-shifting, especially through the use of meth. And I believe once you take meth and you experience that demonic side, I don't believe that door can ever be shut. It might take a lot of counseling and spirituality to pull you through it. Also, this points to him being a chronic sex offender. Sexual perversions dominate his mind. Continuing to up the ante in terms of his perversions. Also, dissociation. So him being under certain drugs could cause him to dissociate. And again, this could be why he's saying, oh, I don't remember doing that with the girl. And it could deal with where he will consciously try to block things out anyway, so he could continue to live with himself. But again, this is a man that doesn't have no remorse. Now, Uranus is running parallel to Zarak. This star resurfaces. So melancholy, fear of death, and suicidal tendencies. So this quote points to this. Watkins was on a 15-minute suicide watch while on remand, the court heard. Uranus is running parallel to Persephone. Persephone is an asteroid that can deal with rape. So this quote right here points to that. Chiron conjunct Cassandra could represent Joanne bringing evidence to the police, especially because he has Moon square Chiron. Here he is right here. As you can see, he's wearing a t-shirt with an upside down cross. Now, you know, you got some people nowadays that think it's cool to like display these satanic symbols, think it's just them being edgy. But I think a lot of people don't realize that these satanic symbols mean things. And it's not just about fashion. But if you notice, over the past few decades, they started to normalize these satanic symbols, especially over the past 10 years. Rappers have started to display these satanic imagery and all this type of stuff. And I believe this shirt is representing like penetration too. Probably a, child predator symbol that we're not aware of. So I talked about his Mars opposition Neptune and how that had a marked effect upon his persona through drugs. Isolating himself due to drug use. So they said that once he started to use drugs heavily, like he would be away from the band a lot and he didn't ride on their tour bus and he was just always off by himself. Drug use enables him to let go of all ethics and morals. Anything goes, nothing is off limits. So I call some of these oppositions in astrology dark corridors, and this is definitely a dark corridor opposition. So being in a dark corridor of drugs, porn, and sexual victimization, acting out evil deeds that he saw in porn. This quote right here, so this is from his defense attorney. She told the court how he had developed an obsession with filming himself having sex and had become addicted to drugs at the age of 30. So that applies to that opposition. So here's the opposition between Mars and Neptune, and you can join that Black Moon Lilith in there. Here he is. Here's something that he wrote. There's that symbol again. It's kind of, well, it's the upside down cross. And again, some of these people take these symbols seriously, and it's representing who they are, demons, devils. And this picture of him right here, to me, screams Scorpio rising. So again, I would not be surprised if he's a Scorpio rising. At the 4th degree, too, because that'd be pervert, sexual pervert. Uranus and Scorpio rising, that'd be sexual pervert. So he had Mercury square Mars, which can produce a reprobate mind, especially due to Mars being in Gemini. Again, Gemini is an immoral sign. So in Christian doctrine, when a sinner is so hardened as to feel no remorse or misgiving of conscience for particularly vile acts, it is considered a sign of reprobation. So reprobate mind definitely is what that square is producing for Ian Watkins in particular. So Mercury square Mars in general can produce violent tendencies. It can make it easy for the person to put their hands on people. Evil intentions, conflict-driven, immoral, immodest, irregular, mentally disturbed, high anxiety, consciously strays from the straight and narrow, destroying innocence, youth. So he has Black Moon Lilith conjoined to his Mars, and Black Moon is running parallel to Circe, and this is representing Joanne luring him to the trap. Also, he made some of the girls he abused take drugs. The Circe represents drugs, but it can also represent a woman that lures men into her trap. Black Moon Lilith opposing Icarus. Joanne putting herself at risk by attempting to incriminate him, gets arrested later. Black Moon parallel Nemesis, representing Joanne, his ex-girlfriend who blew the whistle, because Nemesis is representing who you blame for your problems, for your troubles. Black Moon conjunct Tabit, self-confidence, inconstancy, arrogance, violence, impiety, danger of treachery and poison. And the Black Moon is running parallel to Sham, combative, opinionated, jealousy, danger of death in battle. Here he is right here. So Mars conjoined to Black Moon Lilith. This is Ian looking for and finding women who are totally sexually liberated, who are willing to do anything. The women activate his dark side, that Black Moon Lilith representing his darker shadow side. The personification of the demon Lilith, destroyer of children. Also, this is representative of Joanne with her red hair, with Mars ruling the color red. All right, so let's go back to the video and we'll play the last part of it. Oh, no, you didn't. Hold on. I have to hit escape for that slideshow to pull it because I don't want to have to go back through all those slides. All right. Okay, so I left off at 1956.
He was the boy from the valleys who lived the dream.
Suspicion appeared to be growing.
At about this time, a separate case involving the detective sergeant at the heart of the Watkins case emerges. That same officer is being investigated over an allegation that he may not have acted on a report of the alleged rape of a 15-year-old girl. We can reveal that this is the accused man in that case, Simon Ashman. He was not convicted of raping the teenager, but in October last year he was jailed for 8 years for separate sexual and violent offences. He denied raping the 15-year-old, but months after the allegation, he went on to indecently assault a 5-year-old girl. The little girl's mother wants to know if the attack could have been prevented. The jury at Merthyr Crown Court was read a victim impact statement by the girl's mother.
My daughter has nightmares where she feels she's being chased. She's woken up in hot sweats. It takes a long time to calm her. My daughter tries to sleep in my bed and doesn't want to let me go, even in the toilet or other rooms in the house. And I'm heartbroken because of the change in my beautiful girl. A little girl who's been tarnished.
We've spoken to a woman who knew Ashman well, and she says he'd been known to South Wales Police for years.
Quite often he'd have young girls in his house, and the police knew this. So I don't know why they couldn't investigate it a lot more. I think he could have been stopped a lot sooner, a hell of a lot sooner.
What more do you think could have been done to stop Ashman?
I think if they did look into things a bit more and spoke to a lot more people and more people were told about him, maybe something could have been done about it.
The police watchdog, the IPCC, is continuing to investigate a detective sergeant at Pontypridd Police Station who was involved in the Ashman case. The same sergeant who's also under investigation over Watkins. On September the 21st, 2012, nearly 4 years after concerns were first brought to the attention of South Wales Police, Watkins was arrested for possession of drugs after they received new information. Importantly, the police also seized his computer, which was heavily encrypted. It was later found to contain damning evidence. Watkins is bailed and gets back in.
That damning evidence again, Moon, Square, Chiron, and Taurus, with Taurus representing the evidence, and then him having the computer heavily encrypted and them trying to crack that code. That's Moon, Square, Uranus, and Scorpio. Just wanted to reinforce that.
Touch with Joanne. She agrees to meet him, she says, so she can try to gather more evidence.
I wanted him to keep confessing these things so that I could keep contacting the police and keep pressuring them to arrest him. And he'd be like, can't believe, every time he'd be like, I can't believe I'm seeing you, I can't believe I keep wanting to see you when you keep trying to put me in jail, repeating the same thing.
Watkins arrives at a hotel in London in the early hours of the morning.
The first thing he says to me, he blurts out, I've got a 2-year-old to rape on Tuesday. Like, showing off about it. Who's 2-year-old? What 2-year-old? Oh, she's a super fan. What the hell's a super fan? Oh, you know, it's like, you do know I'm a big deal, don't you? And I've got all these super fans and they're giving me their kids.
Joanne sees an email to Watkins from a woman who she recognises. She realises that the young woman has a child, and she fears it's the child
Ian Watkins bragging about these super fans. That's that Moon in Aquarius, trine Pluto and Libra.
Watkins wants to abuse. She then contacts the woman on Twitter and challenges her over the claims. She also gets in touch with Watkins on email and challenges him too.
Right, I've got it now. I've got you. I've got it. I've got it on emails and I've got it on Twitter, private messages. I've got you. And so I contacted Bedfordshire Child Services and then I contacted Bedford Police and I spoke to someone in Child Protection Unit and I'm basically telling her going over everything that I'd already told the police in Wales and South Yorkshire, like a lot of stuff I'm telling her. And I'm saying to her, you've got to do something.
The woman with the child Watkins says he plans to rape is woman B, and she will eventually be arrested and jailed. About 3 weeks later, Watkins is arrested for a second time at his home address in Pontypridd on suspicion of producing an obscene article. He's granted bail again, and he teams up with the Lost Prophets as they embark on a UK tour. This is the last time Watkins would be seen performing on stage, at their final concert in Newport on November the 14th, 2012. A month later, on December the 17th, Watkins is arrested for a third time. Now there's enough evidence and he's charged, together with women A and B, with a series of sex offences. For nearly a year he protests his innocence, but finally, last November, he admitted he was responsible for a catalogue of sex offending involving children.
That's that Sun Square Chiron where there was so much evidence stacked up against him that it was like, okay, you don't got no choice but to admit your crimes and maybe your sentence will be not as severe.
Watkins was sentenced to 29 years in jail and must serve an additional 6 years on licence. Woman A was sentenced to 14 years, woman B, 17 years.
Today's sentence reflects the gravity of the crimes that have been...
See, there's that guy with that statement, these sentences reflect the gravity of the crimes committed, and I don't believe so. If there's no death penalty, all three of them should have got life, in my opinion. That would be justice, but to me, ultimate justice be you don't get to enjoy this life anymore. You're going to get put down because you're a threat to society. Maybe not the women should be put down, but I'm like, they should have got longer than 14 and 17 years.
Committed. The 3 paedophiles responsible for the terrible abuse of 2 babies have now been brought to justice.
Watkins has since lodged an appeal against his 29-year sentence. The story doesn't end here.
So he's filed an appeal that could be seen through that Mars, opposition Neptune, and Sagittarius. And that could be where it's just an ongoing appeal process. And in my opinion, anybody that files an appeal, that means you're not remorseful.
While phase 1 of the investigation is complete, phase 2 is still very much ongoing.
It aims to establish if there are any more victims or offenders linked to Watkins or his associates. Police inquiries continue in Germany, the USA, and here in the UK.
But questions still remain unanswered, such as what action, if any, was taken by South Wales Police each time Joanne Magellicks made a complaint against Watkins? What happened to the reports from other complainants? And perhaps most significantly, could Watkins' offending have been stopped earlier if the police had taken a different course of action?
These questions and more still need to be answered, and tonight there are growing calls for a wide-scale investigation.
Because of the numbers of children involved, the numbers of forces involved, the numbers of professional people involved in the whole decision-making and information-sharing network, if you like, that some kind of large inquiry really needs to happen that will be transparent and be educative for the rest of professionals up and down Wales and England who actually are doing this day to day.
Joanne was arrested over a sex tape with Watkins, but she says the police took no further action. South Wales Police have identified their own concerns, and they say they have strengthened child protection procedures, and they've called in the Independent Police Complaints Commission to investigate.
The IPCC isn't expected to publish its findings for months, but the detective sergeant at the heart of this case has been served notice that he's under investigation for gross misconduct. The IPCC is also looking at the way he was managed by his superiors, and it's investigating 2 other police forces in Bedfordshire and South Yorkshire.
All right, so y'all got the gist of it. I'm going to start right here and then just talk about the rest of what I have dealing with his chart. So let me just get back to the slide that I was looking at. Let me hit escape. So I was just about to talk about his Venus-Jupiter conjunction before I played the last video clip. So let me just return to that part. So he has Venus conjunct Jupiter in Gemini, both at the 26th degree. So that 26th degree pertains to partnership. And in his case, his partnership with the women when it came to doing these evil acts was always surrounded by a lot of females in school. That's that Venus conjoined to Jupiter in Gemini. Most of his fans were schoolgirls, Gemini theme. He would have sex with a different girl every night when he was performing. That's what it was reported. Attracting women who are willing to do anything he suggests, which is showing through that Jupiter. So they're willing to do anything and everything he suggests. Now, this quote right here points to this conjunction as well. Meanwhile, South Wales police are investigating whether Watkins also committed offenses in Germany and America, and the IPCC has confirmed it was investigating 3 police forces over the case. So this conjunction right here just shows that he was able to make his rounds through different countries internationally, and it's not showing abuse on an international level, but it's just showing international connections and him being able to go to different places in the world, basically. So they're right to expand their investigation to America and Germany, and they might need to look at other countries as well. That Venus conjunct Jupiter can deal with foreign women. Now, he has Moon sesqui-square Venus and Jupiter, so this is where he tried to pull Joanne into his wicked ideas, but it backfired on him. Information is released by the media regarding his shocking and perverted behavior. A woman testifies against him and supplies emails and text messages. His mother dismissing the information that is brought to her. Mother believes anything he tells her. Mom always tried to be his friend with that moon in Aquarius, and in that respect, she's liable to believe anything he tells her. Mother is an airhead to the max. That's what I'm seeing with this sesqui-square. Venus and Jupiter are running parallel to Cornephoros, which is a star that produces fixity of purpose, strength of character, art in nature, but also dangerous passions. Venus and Jupiter conjunct Niobe. Niobe deals with tragedy involving children. A woman's court testimony about the abuse of her child. So both of the women in this case. Also, this points to a lot of documents are provided as evidence in trial regarding the abuse of children. And this quote right here pertains to this conjunction. It was a classic case that the evidence was so overwhelming, there should not be credit given. And I believe that was the prosecutor saying that. So here he is right here to the right. He looks like that evil rogue lion, the beast. And this right here is the size of the cell phone that he smuggled in his anus. And here's the article, just some of it, basically. So it says barbershop court. Oh, this isn't the article about the phone with the anus thing. I already talked about that. This is another article detailing his activities while he's incarcerated. So it says barbershop quartet with fellow pedophile inmates. Ian Watkins, singer of Welsh rock band Lost Prophets, has already planned a farewell concert in prison with fellow inmates as a barbershop quartet-esque band similar to the Beach Boys. So again, this shows that he is not remorseful. He's continuing to commit these evil deeds if he can, if he's allowed to. So it says he had previously furiously denied the allegations of child sex offenses, but now states he has embraced his future and hopes for a positive financial outcome. The 36-year-old from Pontypridd and 2 women have been due to stand trial at Cardiff Crown Court. Watkins pleaded guilty to attempted rape and sexual assault of a blank, but not guilty to rape. This was accepted by the prosecution. The concert will include renditions of several classics such as The Who's The Kids Are All Right and an intimate reworking of family favorite Baby I'm Yours. Wow. Prosecuting barrister Chris Cleage QC told the court Ian Watkins admits that he misunderstood the offer of playing with kids in glass houses at a recent festival. So it says this caption under his picture, Lost Prophets singer Ian Watkins accepted he was a determined and committed pedophile. So that's basically it, dealing with this monster. And hopefully justice will really be served at some point where he will have to really pay for his crimes, but it might take the next lifetime for that to happen. But yeah, so hopefully you got something out of this astrological case study. If not for nothing else, just to understand some of the aspects that could contribute to a person being a demon in the flesh, which is why I included this in my demonic and depraved series. But thank you again, Sid Finn, for sponsoring this video. I'm not even going to monetize it because I know it probably won't be monetized, or it'll be very limited. And so yeah, and if anybody would like to provide their thanks through a donation, you can click that thanks button. It's a heart underneath the video, or you could just send me a Cash App donation or whatever. If you would like to sponsor a video, you can send $45 via Cash App or PayPal. The links are in the description section. Keep in mind that the $45 price is an introductory fee, because I will be raising the amount soon. So if you want me to do a reading on a celebrity or someone who is infamous, you should get in on it now while the price is only $45. And if you would like a reading, you could go to my website at Rahbinah.com. The link is in the description section. Peace, many blessings, and I'm out.